Okay, let's get underway. So again, this is Andrew Lampett. I'm Senior Director of Product Marketing at DataStax. I manage the product marketing team. This webinar is DataStax Enterprise versus open source Apache Cassandra. And we're going to describe the differentiation in features, performance, and services between DataStax Enterprise and open source Apache Cassandra. Before we get underway, I just want to give you the boilerplate safe harbor commentary that this presentation does include a little bit of forward-looking statements. This is not meant to be contractual, and it's not meant to have your buying decisions based upon that forward-looking content. So first off, just at a high level, what is the DataStax differentiation? DataStax is all about guaranteeing the right now for data management for the enterprise. And you can look at that from a perspective of across 4 core areas. The first one we call DataStax Enterprise Core. When I say DataStax Enterprise Core, you can think of that essentially as the database features or the Apache Cassandra related type features. And when you look at those capabilities versus the database of Apache Cassandra, you can get better performance on the DataStax Enterprise side, more powerful features including advanced security, flexible deployment options, etc. And you'll also have much better ease of use, both with respect to operations management and developer tooling. And I'll be covering all of these pieces a little bit further. Number 2, it's a unified data platform, so everything is integrated into a cohesive data platform, even beyond the database capabilities themselves. So what that means is you'll be able to handle mixed workloads. So combining, for example, search and operational analytics with respect to also, of course, the core transactional capabilities. There's also a consistent security model across the whole data platform, so you don't have to have different ways of managing security, whether you're trying to work with search or operational analytics. It's all going to be consistent with respect to how the transactional security is managed as well. And of course, there's DataStax Enterprise Graph, which is an option above and beyond DataStax Enterprise Max. And what that means is you're able to add graph capabilities to the database so that you can have the value of relationships more accessible to you. Next up is world-class services by the experts. So DataStax is a team of experts that are professionals at managing data at scale. And we have the experts who have managed the largest deployments in the world, both for Apache Cassandra and DataStax Enterprise. So we bring those services capabilities to bear for you, whether it's with respect to customer support, professional services, or training. And then finally, looking ahead, something called DataStax Managed Cloud, which is essentially going to make much easier operations for you so that your teams can simply focus on business innovation. I'll describe that a little bit more later as well. So let's take a step back and so you can understand the evolution of the company DataStax and where we started and where we're at today. So in eras 1 and 2, DataStax was really focusing on building most of Apache Cassandra for the community. And so what I mean by that, if you look at era 1 through 2010 through 2013, remember that Facebook had originally contributed Apache Cassandra as an open source project. However, there weren't it wasn't a very active community. So DataStax brought its resources to bear to make sure that it was a viable project, to make sure that it was maturing quickly to be able to handle more intensive requirements and workloads. Era 2, on the other hand, was after it was established, Apache Cassandra was established as a viable, successful project in era 1. Era 2 was all about enabling the community. And that meant people were still learning about NoSQL. They were still learning about Apache Cassandra. They were still learning about data modeling techniques for Apache Cassandra, for example. So DataStax set out to enable a massive community. And that was achieved via events around the world. That was achieved by building world-class documentation. That was achieved by building courses and training, both online and in person. And so now today what you have is a thriving community that is very successful with both the Apache Cassandra project, but also there's a vast community of trained resources able to handle it. Now, Era 3, which is really the focus of this presentation, is really about how DataStax is now focusing on the customers, and that is data management for the enterprise with DataStax Enterprise. So what that means is now in Era 3, you come first, you, the DataStax Enterprise customers. So again, drawing back to the prior slide, the history of DataStax has been contributing to open source in Era 1 and 2. In fact, it's maybe one of the best kept secrets that Apache Cassandra, most of the code was actually contributed by DataStax employees. Going forward, if you look at version 5.0, which was released last summer, version 5.1 that was released earlier in the year, more and more differentiation has been added to DataStax Enterprise as a comprehensive data platform versus the open source Apache Cassandra. The list of features here are not exhaustive. They're just meant to give you some examples of the capabilities that you see in DataStax Enterprise that are not available in the open source edition. So just very quickly, and I'll be talking about a number of these throughout the presentation. In 5.0 last year, we came out with DataStax Enterprise Graph. We added advanced replication, tiered storage, advanced security, live indexing. 5.1, just a couple months ago, very significant performance improvements, row-level access control, particularly for multi-tenant SaaS applications. We extended search in Graph, and then Studio extended to CQL, or Cassandra Query Language, and Graph. Now, if you wanted to look at a side-by-side comparison as an easy reference, I invite you to take a look at datastax.com, go to the product and subscriptions webpage. You'll see exactly this table. And what it shows is, line by line, different features that are available in both DataStax Enterprise and Max. I called out some of those on the prior slide. But just going down the line, and I'm not going to elaborate on these in great detail, but to call out, for example, when you get to DataStax Enterprise Max, you add in-memory capabilities, search with Solar, analytics with Spark, Graph as an option as well. And then with respect to management and development, you have Ops Center for administration and monitoring, and Studio for developer tooling. And I'll talk about those in a little bit more detail as well. It doesn't stop there, though, however. It also is differentiated with respect to services. So if you did want commercial support, you would get that via DataStax Enterprise. It's not offered for the Apache Cassandra open source project. Platform certification, so you have the enterprise-grade, heavily tested version of Apache Cassandra. Hot fixes, bug escalation, that's all available, again, via support only on DataStax Enterprise. And you get free software for deployments of non-production environments. And then, of course, health checks and performance reviews as well, available only for DataStax Enterprise. So let's take a step back. If you are using open source software or considering using it, there are advantages to that. Obviously, there's not the licensing price, but that would be maybe not being aware of the full picture if you're only considering is there a price or not to the licensed software. Because really, it is an investment, and that's what this slide is about, is committing to a lot if you're only going solo with open source. There are companies that do that, but they do it intentionally, keeping these characteristics in mind. They would need to have extensive resources to be able to handle business critical issues. So what do I mean specifically by that? So if you're going down the path of open source, take a look on the left-hand side. What you're actually committing to is increased learning curve, all the way from development to operations. So not only, just learning how to use it, the product for your development teams, but you also need to have pretty extensive skills in understanding how to run and manage a healthy deployment. Now, once you do have questions, and of course you're always going to have questions when you're deploying an enterprise solution, you're going to have to be investing time to hunt down those answers from the community. And that's going to take both time and effort to do so. And remember, they're not going to be the open source community is not someone that's going to be offering an SLA for you, a service level agreement, to try to track down the root cause of a particular bug and be able to provide a timeline for fixing the bug back to you. And once you have those resources on board, remember, you're going to have to keep them, forever. It's a forever commitment to have the right skill set and keep them on board in perpetuity. And then there's opportunity costs. So the time and attention that you're putting into the code itself, tracking down answers and bug fixes, is time and effort that you're taking away from your own team's business innovation. So what's that lead us to on the right is the risks on that commitment. So you're not going to have support for critical productions and systems in your enterprise production systems. So can you patch that source code in emergencies? Will community help you in a prioritized way? Likely not. Can you find experts quickly and easily for those critical projects? And remember, you're also investing in something that where you're going to have to always come up with the latest and greatest in benefits and capabilities. Whereas with DataStax Enterprise, those additional capabilities and features, performance, and security are continually being added for you, so you could benefit from those instantly by being a DataStax Enterprise customer. And then finally, again, it's distraction from your core business. That's not only with respect to focus and efforts, but also budget. So the alternative really is DataStax. We built most of Apache Cassandra. Our experts are there for you for support and for delivering solutions. And so our services at your disposal let you focus on your business. And so what is our commitment to you? It's across 4 key areas: functional innovation, customer success, stability, and lower risk. So functional innovation, you have our commitment to improve upon the platform across 3 main areas: performance, ease of use, and breadth of platform. So performance, that's both with respect to the core engine, that's also with respect to the various workloads like operational analytics and search. Ease of use, that's a couple main categories. That's developer tooling. So we'll talk about Studio in a moment, where you can graphically work with your developments, as well as the breadth of platform. So I'm speaking of things outside the context of your traditional Apache Cassandra deployment, things like search, operational analytics, developer tooling, administration and monitoring. It goes on and on. So customer success, we're going to continue to provide developments across the board, not only in development, but also with respect to those vital services that are required for you to have a successful deployment. That is training, that is documentation to how, the ins and outs to use all the bells and whistles, professional services, customer support to make sure that you, our customer, are always successful. And then there's stability. Of course, we're going to be providing comprehensive testing. I'll talk about that in a little bit later, about how we test at scale. Hot fixes for your production issues. Remember, we will port backwards bug fixes to your version on DataStax Enterprise. All of this means it's lowering risk for you. So you're continuing to have a distributed, scalable, responsive, hybrid environment, and you can rely upon the security and operations management capabilities that we provide to you. Everything means you're going to lower the risk in your own deployment. Let's get into the nitty-gritty now. So there's about 5 sections here I'll talk you through in detail as to what those differences are with respect between DataStax Enterprise and open source Apache Cassandra. So first up, it's a unified platform, all unified and integrated as a data platform. And so on the left, you see the detail of what I mean by that. It handles both the multi-model environment, so not only the key value store that you're familiar with Apache Cassandra, that can be extended also with tabular and JSON, but again, we just added graph last year. So that's an option for DataStax Enterprise. At the same time, mixed workloads, so handling the transactional operations as you would expect, but also integrating in search and operational analytics. Then the developer tooling with Studio, as well as administration and monitoring with Ops Center. I'll speak to those a little bit later as well. Here's a customer quote from Macquarie Bank, and they realized that they were going to be looking for these disparate components, disparate open source components. DataStax, they were looking for the capability of Apache Cassandra, the capabilities of things like Spark for search as well, and they realized, you know what, it's going to take a lot of effort to cobble those things together, and we still won't have a unified approach, for example, to a security model. We still won't have operations management. We still won't have security. We still have to figure out our own bug fixes. And so they relied on DataStax Enterprise and do today, and now they can focus on business innovation. Next up, Enterprise Ready. So that's across a number of areas. So you can think about it in terms of security, which is clearly super critical for enterprise deployment. You could also look at it from perspectives of the software itself in terms of releases and bug fixes and QA. So on the left, you see there faster release cycles than you'll see in the open source project. Very detailed advanced security options, whether it's authentication, encryption of the data at rest, data auditing, row-level access control. That's for SaaS, multi-tenant SaaS applications. So on a given table, users will only have access to the given appropriate rows. That's super interesting and critical when you're dealing with the multi-tenant SaaS application in terms of removing overhead of dealing with that security aspect for a multi-tenant app. And then that's a consistent security model across the whole platform. When I talk about QA at scale, I'm talking, significant. 1,000 nodes is what we test V5 at. And then expert customer support, and including backporting whatever that bug fix is to the version required for you. So very critical capabilities there for the enterprise. Ops Center. So Ops Center is our visual administration and monitoring tool, and that's, again, only available with DataStax Enterprise. And we like to say it automates what no one likes to worry about, backups, repairs, etc. So this is a visual environment for you to look at your cluster as a single entity, as you wish, as opposed to, for example, working with individual nodes in a manual process where you have to worry about keeping things in sync yourself. Ops Center does that for you. It lets you manage the cluster in a very easy and automated way. You can choose to use it as it is with the visual environment. We do have a REST API, and we have a lot of customers who simply prefer to use it that way, to plug into their own systems and handle the alerting and the configuration in the way that they prefer to with their own systems. So what that's allowing you to do is instantly manage your cluster, scale up and down as you require, monitor your cluster, and follow best practices so that everything is secure. Also, only in DataStax Enterprise. Here are a couple areas in performance, and I'll talk a little bit later about how we're going to continue this trend in very significant performance difference between open source Apache Cassandra and, you could say, the sister open source components with respect to DataStax Enterprise. So first up is compaction. And remember that compaction is all about cleaning up the process of writes that removes deleted data and coalesced SS table fragments. And so what we've done in our latest release is improved upon that greatly to allow for 2x, up to 2x throughput gains versus open source Cassandra. On the operational analytics side, we've allowed for continuous paging to allow up to 3 times operational analytics performance versus the combination of open source Apache Cassandra and open source Apache Spark. So what that means is, of course, when you're reading, you're going through scans, and if you're just looking at Apache Cassandra by itself, that's not really designed for handling those kinds of reads and scans. But what we've done with the latest release of DataStax Enterprise is to optimize that when doing the scans and leverage the functions of Spark appropriately. So with Studio, Studio was debuted with the release of DataStax Enterprise 5.0 last summer, and that was primarily around tooling for the graph capabilities. And that numbering was at 1.0 last summer. We've recently released version 2.0, and we brought in the capabilities of the former developer tooling of DevCenter. So DevCenter, which was designed as tooling for CQL, has now been brought under the umbrella of DataStax Studio. So now you have a comprehensive developer tooling environment to handle both CQL and Gremlin. And then we have the expert services of DataStax across the key areas of customer support, training, and professional services. So again, as a reminder, we have the experts who have managed and do manage the largest clusters in the world for DataStax Enterprise and who have worked with the largest clusters of Apache Cassandra. So beyond that for support, also on the training side, remember DataStax Academy has extensive courses both for in-person training and online courses. We have a number of courses that are free that we invite you to just go and check them out to understand the basics. And then we have advanced training as well online. And then professional services, so access to the best experts who manage the largest deployments in the world. So this is where we're going to talk a little bit about looking ahead statements. So again, I can't offer timelines to these, but I invite you to stay tuned and also to get in touch with DataStax sales team, and they can arrange a more rigorous roadmap discussion to get into these comments in a little bit more detail. So first up is DataStax Managed Cloud. What is it? It's a fully managed secure architecture of DataStax Enterprise on AWS, okay? And we're going to handle complete lights out management coverage 24/7, and we're including also the best practices for setting up, tuning, managing your deployment. Additionally, not mentioned here, there's also the notion of DataStax being able to manage your operations, whether it's on your own infrastructure or another public cloud. So that's also an option to you. Again, it's not mentioned here in black and white, but please be aware of that. So essentially what we're talking about is being able to have the ability to manage DataStax Enterprise as a managed service as described here, or via on-premises, via our professional services team. And ultimately what that means is we can handle a hybrid environment, which we know is very common amongst our customers' requirements. So DSE Core. With version 6, again, I'm not mentioning a timeline for this, but look for great improvements with respect to features, performance, and ease of use. As a reminder, that orange box at the bottom, DSE Core, you can think of that as the database-oriented features associated to Apache Cassandra. So look for continuing increased differentiation in that core database of DataStax Enterprise versus Apache Cassandra from the experts who actually built most of Apache Cassandra. So that's features, that's significant performance gain, that's significant ease of use capabilities. I would say sooner than later on the operations side, but also continuing on the development side as well. So you might be aware of Apache Cassandra and a little bit of the heritage of the project itself. However, in case you're not aware, I'd like to also give you an introduction to DataStax, the company. So we've grown, since the past 7 years or so to more than 400 employees. We have a very good backing from blue chip investors, as you see there, Scale, Kleiner Perkins, Draper, Fisher, Jurgensen, etc. We have more than 500 customers. The world's most innovative brands rely on DataStax. I'd like to call out also the commentary down below by Gartner. If you go to our website, you can get this report where they call us out for being #1 in multiple operational database categories. That is a report that was issued last October that also takes into account, I believe it's more than 200 operational databases out there. This is including categories, the same category of other databases like Oracle. So the traditional leaders we've gone head-to-head against, and we're ranked #1 by Gartner. So I invite you to take a look at that report. Again, it's available at our website. So I'd like to offer a little more context about the evolution of the company as well. So remember, if you look on the far left in this graphic, databases, popped up, first hierarchical systems and then into the client server and relational world. And then when DataStax came on the scene, a lot of different open source databases were popping up. And that's where you can think of it as the era 1 that I described early in the presentation. And so DataStax set out to make that project successful. We achieved that in era 1. Era 2, we set out to make the community successful. We achieved that. Now you look on the right side of the graphic, the bigger square there, and now it's about focusing on you, on the customers, and to make you successful. That's specifically for data management for cloud applications that have these requirements that we like to refer to in an acronym of CARDS, C-A-R-D-S. And that is, we provide the contextual information, that's the C. It's always on, real time, distributed, and scalable. So when you have those characteristics for CARDS, that's where DataStax really shines. And if you look at the different use cases, we have those split into a couple of different areas. On the top is customer experience, and down below we call it general. And what that's recognizing is that customer experience is an increasingly critical initiative across major enterprises. And that customer experience concept is known as the culmination for a customer of the experiences that they have with a given entity. And so DataStax has a new initiative that we launched in March to attack this customer experience segment across these different use cases. So Customer 360, where you need to understand all the touch points that you have with a given customer across different touch points, across different geographies. Personalization, so that you can tailor that experience in real time specifically for a given customer. And then that leads to recommendation, so that you can give them the best selections given behavior and personal tastes. And then finally, if you're able to do all that and you're understanding the customer very intimately, then of course you're able to be very successful at fraud detection and have anti-fraud capabilities. Now, of course, we work well beyond as a platform, beyond customer experience as well, and there's some other use cases where customers are super successful with DataStax Enterprise. Those of note are supply chain, inventory management, and several other areas there. If you want to kind of wrap it up in a kind of comprehensive what we do for customers, it says it right there in the subtitle of we solve the right now for customers. So in other words, you might see a lot of solutions out there that can handle the enormity of data, but they can't do it in real time. Or you can find solutions out there that can handle the real-time aspect, but they can't really handle it in a persisted manner in an operational context. We combine all of that together, real-time, operational, big data, at scale, in an always-on, predictable fashion. So what that means is we are the power behind the moment. The idea being that your business is powered by billions of moments per second. And these are just a sample of the leading industry brands out there that rely on DataStax Enterprise and DataStax for powering those billions of moments a second. So thank you. That wraps it up. We have time for some Q&A, and I'd be happy to take those questions now. So let me check the chat in case any of those are coming in. I see one question that's about migrating from open source Apache Cassandra to DataStax Enterprise, and if we can assure that that's an easy transition and without data loss. Yep, that's a straightforward thing that is very commonly done for new customers. Oftentimes what's done is you set up a new cluster, and then you simply replicate the data from Apache Cassandra to DataStax Enterprise, and then over time the migration becomes complete. Other questions coming in. I see how does security work with DataStax Enterprise? So there are, you could say, kind of the minimum capabilities of security in Apache Cassandra, but if I go back to the slide real quickly about security, there can be a reminder for you of the different capabilities handled there. So on the left under Advanced Security, these are items that you will not see in Apache Cassandra that are only in DataStax Enterprise. Okay, awaiting other questions. So when will DataStax Managed Cloud be available? I'm sorry, I can't comment on precise timeline, but there's a reminder of this capabilities here. What I'd ask you to do is just stay tuned and reach out to us, to our sales team, and they can give you a little bit more guidance on that timing. All right, so I see a lot of other questions coming in, and what I can suggest is we'll follow up with those one-on-one with your local sales team, and they can help you directly. And that wraps it up for our session, and I really appreciate your time. Thanks, and look forward to learning your stories about your success with DataStax Enterprise. Thank you.